Nice. All right. Hi, everyone. How's it going? How's your Friday night? It's me, Gabriel. I'm from Brand Workers. Yeah. Oh, Saturday. Sorry. I don't know anymore. I just lose track of days. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Saturday night. Saturday night. How's your Saturday night? Hope it's going well. Yeah, so it's me. We're Brand Workers, and we are partnering with Hormiguero to help put on this. Yeah, Hormiguero. To put on this panel, which is talking about hot labor strikes, hot labor striking. And so I just want to make sure that everybody got the message. If you need translation, English to Spanish, Spanish to English, for all you monolingual speakers, go ahead and hop on the Zoom. There's QR codes on the tables. There's QR codes like in the program, I believe, as well. And a lot of my peas are popping. But yeah, for right now, just want to thank our sponsors, the sponsors of the event. And so sponsored tonight, Brand Workers, the IWW NYC, Anak Bayan Manhattan, MAC, the GSA Labor Branch, the Urban Justice Center, the Street Vendors Project, the Laundry Workers Center, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, EWOC, North New Jersey DSA, oh yeah, Jersey, okay, Jersey, right? And the Astoria Workers Project. All right, and so, are we doing LWC? Yeah, okay. So let me introduce our speaker from LWC to just give a quick talk about their work. So this is Adelso Escalante. Adelso.
Buenas noches a todos. Gracias por la oportunidad. Mi nombre es Adelso Escalante. Soy miembro de la organización Laundry Worker Center y líder de mi campaña, los fabricantes. Pues nada, muy feliz acá con ustedes. Gracias a Grand Workers por la gala de Hormiguero que están presentes. Como bien saben, nosotros somos trabajadores de construcción. Somos un grupo que fuimos víctimas del abuso laboral, ¿no? Donde varias veces en el trabajo pasaban muchas cosas, vivíamos, trabajábamos en un mal estado, muchos de nosotros nos enfermábamos, teníamos el riesgo de perder la vida en el trabajo, trabajábamos en una compañía desagradable, ¿no? Donde la cual nos tocó reunirnos, nos conseguimos una organización como Laundry Worker que fue un gran apoyo para nosotros y hacer ese cambio, ¿no? Al igual que también a Hormiguero, a Grand Worker, que fueron parte de todo eso y gracias a todo eso pudimos hacer el cambio, ¿no? Hoy en día estoy muy feliz, yo y mis compañeros buscamos una mejor manera, hicimos el gran cambio que realizamos y con orgullo puedo decir de que ganamos esa victoria y no solo a nosotros, sino que yo los comparto con todos ustedes, ¿no? Porque para mí eso significa mucho. Yo como líder me ha costado mucho, fue un proceso muy largo, en la cual digo, valió la pena, ¿no? Porque lo necesitamos el cambio en el trabajo. So, yo me siento muy feliz con todos ustedes, poder compartir mi experiencia, poder compartir lo que hemos ganado, una victoria de lucha y demostrar los buenos trabajadores que somos en esta industria. Muchísimas gracias y de parte de Laundry Worker.
Thank you so much. So up next, we're going to bring up the IWW. Terry from the IWW. Who are we bringing up for that? Oh, okay. We're bringing up Jackie. Jackie? Sorry.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Jackie. I'm with the Mission to End Modern Slavery. We are a small nonprofit that supports survivors of trafficking, labor trafficking. We've also been supporting the Justice for Jollibee Workers campaign. Thank you, everyone, for your support for them. I'm sorry they couldn't be here. It was really tough. A lot of them are working, and some have actually also left the New York, New Jersey area. But yeah, they fought a long campaign, well, not very long, actually, just 6 months, against an illegal termination of 9 workers who were representing all their coworkers, fighting for higher wages and better working conditions. And they got all of their demands of reinstatement, back pay, $84,000, and an apology that we're going to make public. And this struggle has inspired workers at other Jollibee stores to also start a fight in their stores. We just heard from Maryland, a Jollibee store in Maryland that is fighting for double pay for holidays. And they went public with that campaign and are looking for more support from everybody. So yeah, it's just amazing to see so much how one store can inspire others in this corporation to fight back. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we're gonna bring up the Street Vendors Project. Eric and the Street Vendors Project. Here they come.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Gabriel. Everybody at Brand Workers and also from El Hormiguero. Thank you for the invitation. For Rosario, who's the presidente de la asociación. We're here because you know, the vendors over at the Corona Plaza here on in Queens fought a very valiant struggle for 4 months to return to work. They were justly removed by the city of New York. And I think, yeah, I think that's a really interesting for us or everyone that fights the bosses to rethink what it means for like informal workers who are self-employed. What does that mean for them? How can the labor movement better support informal workers? And that's why we're here today. I'm really excited for you all to listen to Rosario. She's been an amazing leader in that fight, and we have a couple of other comrades that are here supporting her from AVA, the Asociación de Vendedores Ambulantes, Corona Plaza. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So today we have Rosario. We have Aaron. We have Josh here to talk about strikes, to talk about striking. So we're super excited for them to hear about their struggle and their fight. We're super excited to hear everything that went on in their campaign. And so, but first, one more time, just want to remind folks that if you need translations from English to Spanish, Spanish to English, there are links to the Zoom where you'll get simultaneous translations, both in the it's here in the program, but it's definitely on the tables. So just in case you need translation services. And so what I wanted to do real quick was to just go ahead and jump in and let's just have folks introduce themselves and like introduce the work. Like what is the work that you're doing? What is the context in which you all started organizing? And who wants to start? Who wants to start right now? Maybe we'll start at the end. We'll start at the end and then we'll move our way back.
Hello, thanks, Gabriel. So my name is Josh. I'm an organizer for the Temple University Graduate Students Association, which is a graduate worker union. And we're teachers and researchers there. And I got involved with TUGSA mostly kind of right before and during the pandemic when Temple, the only university in the city of Philadelphia, forced us back to work before vaccines in labs, in classes. They made our department had to essentially draw straws for which graduate student had to go teach in person. So that was really fucked up. So I started organizing and we went on strike for the first time ever in our union's history, and the first time in 30 years at Temple University. And that was, we'll talk more about that, I guess, and how we got to that point. But it kind of all started with an indignity, really, right? Like people go on strike ultimately for a lot of reasons, but a lot of times it's because they're being treated with indignity. And that was the beginning of how we started organizing and getting people organized in it. So yeah.
Hi, hello. I'm Aaron. I'm a fifth-year PhD student at Columbia in the physiology department. I'm an organizer with the Student Workers of Columbia UAW Union. So I was involved in our strike back in 2021 when we went on strike twice, just as a part of like organizing my department and a lot of the STEM departments that were a little bit less involved than the ones in the humanities. So now I'm a steward, so I'm still kind of involved in contract enforcement and helping to file grievances for our student union. Yeah.
Hola, buenas noches a todos. Gracias por la invitación. Mi nombre es Rosario Troncoso. Vengo en representación de los vendedores ambulantes, en específico de Corona Plaza. Soy la presidenta de la Asociación de Vendedores Ambulantes de Corona Plaza. Pertenezco a LIC Beer Project también, a la organización. Y pues llevo vendiendo en la plaza desde el 2020. Soy mexicana, llevo 9 años aquí en Estados Unidos y esta lucha ha sido muy importante para mí porque ha sido difícil, pero estamos logrando poco a poco por lo que estábamos peleando, porque nos desalojaron de la plaza, dejamos de trabajar 4 meses en lo que no teníamos ingresos y era un acoso de la policía, a veces de la comunidad, pero seguimos en nuestra lucha y gracias a Dios logramos algo, formalizar el mercado.
Okay, well, thank you all for that context. And the next thing I want to jump into is like, at some point you all had to make a decision. You had to make a really tough decision with your coworkers, with your comrades, about how to move forward and go ahead and make this decision to strike, right? And so before we jump in, like let me take like a quick straw poll of folks. Like first of all, like, can you raise your hands if you all have wanted to organize your workplaces? Just quick raise up the hands. Have you all wanted to organize your workplaces? Okay. All right. All right, that's awesome. That's awesome. So how many folks have been actually part of a strike? Oh, wow. All right. So the folks up here, So yeah, this is the crowd, this is the audience. Like these are folks that want to learn from y'all's experience. And so let's talk about that decision and how did that decision come about? What were some of the, like the feelings, the sentiments at the time? And like maybe talk us through the process of how you did it. And this time let's start with Aaron.
So I started at Columbia in 2019. So that was a completely different world pre-COVID, I guess. I wasn't too involved in the union or organizing with workers' rights, I would say, until we were like right about to start the strike in 2021 in the spring of that semester. But I do remember at that time just being a regular rank and file worker who was like not really involved in the union, having the union organizers who were just other graduate students coming around and asking us about how we feel about our working conditions, about our salary, about how we're treated by the university and stuff like that. And just bringing up pretty good questions that I had never really considered before. That was, yeah. That was really important for me in terms of like getting me from being just maybe like loosely supportive of the union to a little bit more of active and organizing with other students who I know who are also probably supportive but not really doing much to organize. And I brought up COVID because I remember 2019, I felt like a lot of people were not very, that I knew at the university, were not super favorable of unions and were kind of like skeptical about the whole idea of joining with UAW and what that might entail. But I really felt like the mood at the university shifted a lot around 2020, 2021 is when we actually went on strike. From what I remember, we had a strike authorization vote in 2020 that passed with a lot of support. And COVID kind of like happened right after that, where everything got shut down. So a lot of the organizing got delayed and stuff like that. But once we're back, I felt like a really big shift in the students. People were kind of seeing how the university and like the government had acted really lackadaisically and were pretty favorable about what a union could do for us. So I wouldn't say I was a super involved person in terms of like organizing coming up to the strike. But in the immediate aftermath, I felt a lot of people were, how should I say, like radicalized a little bit, and were like brought to like stop their work. A big thing was like at Columbia, a lot of the classes are taught by graduate students. So them stopping striking, I guess, from teaching the classes was really disruptive. So I guess we're just talking about starting the strike now. So I'll pass the mic.
Bueno, nuestra decisión para hacer el plantón, como le llamamos nosotros, o el paro en la plaza, en Corona Plaza, fue porque nos dimos cuenta después del primer mes que si no presionábamos de alguna manera a los departamentos que no nos dejaban trabajar en la plaza, decidimos tener una reunión con los miembros de la asociación, que en ese tiempo eran más de 80, a tomar la decisión de tomar la plaza todas las 24 horas. Entonces, tomamos la decisión entre la mayoría, aceptó. Entonces, se dividieron el día de 24 horas en 4 turnos y empezamos a hacer los plantones. Al mismo tiempo, pedíamos firmas con la petición de que nos dejaran regresar a trabajar en la plaza. Esto fue la manera porque la mayoría de los trabajadores, vendedores dentro de la plaza, somos mujeres. Hay mujeres, madres solteras, que era su único ingreso que teníamos y teníamos que luchar más que nada por eso, porque eso era un trabajo digno y la policía nos quería criminalizar. Entonces decidimos hacer esto y así fue como poco a poco logramos lo que obtuvimos y la gente que quería seguir estuvo, no paramos hasta que se logró lo que queríamos. Fue muy difícil, recibíamos insultos de muchas personas que no nos querían ahí, el acoso de la policía, pero decíamos, no nos podemos ir porque este es nuestro trabajo, es un trabajo, no estamos haciendo nada malo. Entonces, por eso fue nuestra decisión de continuar y logramos esto. Así que es difícil, pero sí se puede.
Yeah, so we started organizing in about 2020 for 2 or 3 years, and it was difficult over Zoom to do that. And then when we started getting in person, we started collective bargaining in about 2021, 2022, and we decided very early on we wanted to do open bargaining, where that means that you have members come in, rank and file to every single bargaining session, and you listen to the opposite side talk about what they think about you, right? Openly. I would say in strikes and leading up to strikes, if you're organizing for that, always be ready to take advantage of employers making mistakes every single time, because they will make mistakes because they're not used to workers going on strike.
Yeah.
They're not used to it, right? We haven't been doing it for a very long time. We're starting to do it now and employers are not ready for it, I think. So they'll overreact or they're underestimated. They underestimated us. They said, yeah, you can do open bargaining, whatever. So we use that as a space to bring people out, people that were skeptical of the union, were being paid $19,000 a year, $20,000 a year. And he's like, why don't you come out and talk to other workers about what's going on and how we can change that? We can do this. And we asked them to come out to specific sessions where they talked about what they were paying us and why, right? Like, I don't have to tell you what they're saying. Why don't you come out and listen to the people that are paying you this and why they think they should be paying you this? And in doing that, people met other people, other departments. In universities, it's very siloed in different departments. So you don't meet other people. What the union does is it brings people across different disciplines together, sharing their experiences. And that was the space we did that in the bargaining sessions. And we caucused and we talked about it, and essentially getting ready to strike. By the time we got to the end of the bargaining, which took a whole year, right, to do that, to get to the point where we could legally strike, at that point, people were ready. They were like, let's go, screw these people. I know exactly why I'm doing this. And it was, again, we needed to get paid more. We needed to get more parental leave. And those are things we needed. But I think the reason people decided to take that risk, and a real risk for especially international students who had visas here, who were dependent on their advisors essentially for their work and for their livelihoods. The reason they went was because of all the things that the employer said to them in a form of indignity, saying like, we're not here to supply like a full-time lifestyle. Why do we need to support you in your visa process? Why do we need to translate documents for you to understand your legal status? These kind of things. We don't need to do that. So that really brought people together. And then by the time we got to actually legally being able to strike, people were like itching, ready to go. So I think it's less about, it is a risk. You have to, work together and trust each other and know that you're going to win, and be ready to do that. But I think when you're going to strike, you kind of have to know it. Like if you're unsure about it, you should consider thinking about strategies to be more sure and more organized to get ready for it. So like when you're about to strike, everyone there ready to go, they understand the risk, but they're willing to do it together, essentially. So.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think each of you got into it a little bit in your discussion of the lead up to the strike. But one of the things that I wanted to hear from you all, and one of the things that I wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper on, was like some of the challenges that you faced while you were in the process of doing the strike. How long did your strike last? Like what were some of the what were the challenges that you faced on the ground as a striking worker alongside your coworkers? And do you want to start this time?
Bueno, nuestro plantón duró 4 meses, en el cual fue algo muy duro, pero con la unión, el apoyo de los compañeros, de gente de fuera, de electos, SVP, mucha gente, logramos mantenernos unidos y fue como logramos, pero exactamente si no hay unión, no hay fuerza y no podemos lograr nada. Entonces, esto duró estos 4 meses. Sabemos que hay huelgas que duran hasta años, pero si se mantienen unidos en comunicación, en apoyo de alguna u otra manera, sabemos que podemos lograr muchas cosas porque no estamos pidiendo algo que no lo merezcamos. Entonces sabemos que es algo legal lo que se pide y por eso es que tenemos que seguir unidos y seguir en la lucha para lograr lo que queremos, el tiempo que sea necesario. Gracias.
So we had a couple issues that we were, sorry. Yeah, a couple issues that we had to overcome and face. I think the reason we went on two strikes was the first strike that we went on in spring of 2021 after our the first strike authorization vote. It went pretty bad, honestly. Our bargaining committee didn't really hold the line that well. It was a lot of people on there who were like SGA members or people who were not really in the mindset of like bargaining aggressively for a contract. So I mean, I know some of them, they were still good people, but they were not the best in terms of like arguing and bargaining against strike like union busting lawyers that Columbia can afford. Another thing that you like brought up about the open bargaining sessions, I remember that was really good for, I guess, like radicalizing a lot of uninterested students, especially in STEM, was just seeing how the Columbia's lawyers were talking to us and talking about us in our face in those Zoom meetings, like we were just the scum of the earth for asking for better pay, or they would just shut down the whole meeting and just leave if someone had made an offhand comment. So, and the rates that they were paying the lawyers were like more than we were asking for. So they were spending more to, yeah, that was ridiculous. But during that first strike, our bargaining unit wasn't really prepared to hold the weight of what all the students were asking for. They agreed to a pretty bad contract, I would say, and there was like a really grassroots movement to vote no on that contract that really came up. It was really grassroots, and that's really how I got more involved in the union after that, the first strike. And after the first contracts is how I got more involved, is like some other students who were coming around asking us about the contract and what we thought about it. And then I met some of the main organizers of the union, and that's how I got more into involved in being an organizer. But yeah, so it was a really bad contract on it. Thankfully, it was we would have been like net losing money in that contract, and we didn't get anything that we asked for in terms of anti-bullying or like help for like families and stuff like that. So after that first strike, the no vote movement on our contracts kind of woke up a lot of people and got us all ready for the second strike that we went on in the fall. I believe it started in like early November of 2021. So throughout that whole time, we basically started off fresh with a new bargaining committee that was voted on by or elected by the student workers, but with a lot more engagement than the first bargaining committee was voted on. There was really no movement in the negotiations with Columbia on the contracts. We had another strike authorization vote. We went on strike again. We had a pretty big strike fund just to help all the other students who would be on strike not getting paid. There was a lot bigger social media and this movement of like publicizing what was going on that really I think helped spread the word and like change public opinion. And we were also in contact pretty closely with other student unions like at NYU and Harvard and other universities like that. So eventually we won on basically everything that we asked for in terms of like improved wages. Yeah. What else did we ask for? Yeah, better wages, bullying, yeah, that was another big one. There's a lot of abusive professors and advisors at Columbia. And we got a healthcare fund for out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. A couple other things. It was a pretty good experience. We righted a lot of the wrongs that we had in our first strike. And it was a really democratic, like student worker led movement that was like really like inspiring just to be a part of. So I really I enjoyed it. Another thing before I finish, there was like no movement until December. We had said originally we were only going to go on strike for maybe 2 months max. By the time those 2 months came and went, we were nowhere close to any of the demands that we wanted. But it seemed that like the strike had gotten way bigger than just us, because they're like NYU's contract was coming up, a lot of other schools' contracts were coming up. So we were like, we can't settle for a bad contract, so we have to keep on going. So it kind of, I'm not gonna say it seemed hopeless or futile, but it was at a very significant stalemate for a while. And then around New Year's, when we went a little bit past when we said we're gonna quit the strike or stop the strike originally, was when Columbia eventually like capitulated on almost everything that we asked for. So yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of challenges in our strike. There was, I mean, we had a strike authorization vote. I forgot to mention, we had a strike authorization vote. Everything was democratic in terms of, we had caucusing, we had information sessions, open bargaining, and we kept that consistent throughout the strike, which was difficult because the university tried to close the negotiations when we were on strike. But we had to give up a lot and spend more time on strike to maintain at least the kind of, eventually it did go to close at the very end, just to get the contract across. But there was caucusing every time at the end of those. We made sure that they waited to make sure we did caucusing. So that was really, really important in getting through the challenges, the specific challenges. Right before the strike, Temple was sending out like implicit emails to international students, specifically saying that they'll be deported essentially if they go on strike, which is an illegal act. So we had to do like a lot of like educational stuff. We had to rely, really rely on international student organizers to talk to other people from countries where they came from, speaking their language and building that trust to get through that. Because also their advisors were telling them that they shouldn't go on strike. In a way, like, you know, all these union busting tactics to build up to it, to increase the fear. And then when we went on strike, speaking on waiting for, or like watching out for your employers overstepping or making mistakes, 9 days into the strike, Temple, which is the first time I think ever a university has done this, removed our health insurance essentially without telling us. So you had, so bear in mind, international students need, you know, for their visas, they need health insurance or they could be deported essentially. And this is illegal. So they didn't tell us. People would go to the pharmacy, go to the doctor, and they say you don't have health insurance. That was day 9. The next day, so the building of trust beforehand and working together and making sure that you have spaces to talk about this stuff is super, super important, because during the strike, there's going to be things that happen very quickly that you have to be able to organize on that you'll never expect. And that was actually one of the big reasons why we won that strike, was because that put our strike on the national news. Washington Post picked it up, and they couldn't escape the press, essentially. And that got the state involved. We're a public university, so politicians started getting involved more, saying, what the hell is going on? We're giving you money. Why are you doing this union busting? Why are you pulling health insurance? And but the biggest thing was 2 organizers got hit first. They got targeted, international students, one from Lebanon and one from Jordan. They both stood up the next day. We got all the press there. We got everyone out. The mayor the DA of Philly came out, 200, 300 people. They got up and just told them to go fuck themselves, essentially, in front of everybody. And at that moment, we knew that no one was going back to work. No one was going to go back to work. And that's the key, because they weren't expecting that. And from there, we were able to build strength kind of in the state, Harrisburg, go lobby, and they got a lot of pressure from politicians to make sure that the contract got across the board. They scabbed our classes, so we're teachers, right? Teachers and researchers, they started scabbing our classes week 2. They started scabbing our classes with unqualified teachers. Another organizer in English, he got scabbed by a real estate agent in Texas. They moved classes online. They did all this stuff to try to get us to go back to work and give up, right? And when we kept on going, and the next day, when they did shit like that, the next day we got everybody outside. They go, that's key. When they hit you, you got to come back the next day, and get as many people out as you can. And that's what we did. And it was very difficult. I mean, I was a strike captain. People came to me that were like, what do I do? Like, the students are telling me, like, this person is like adding more work than I was giving them. They're not good teachers. I can't miss this class, but I don't want to go to the class. So it was really emotionally difficult. A lot of long nights talking to people on the phone, convincing them that it was going to be okay, and getting through that. But actually, that again happened where the students, the undergrads, because of all these classes got online, because of these horrible teachers that they're scabbing with, because of what was going on, they organized a walkout. I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks in, like 2,000 people walked out of classes in the middle of the day, walked down Broad Street, marched around, huge news. And so yeah, the lesson in that and the challenges is know they're going to come. They're probably going to overstep, and just be confident in your organizing capacity and your trust with each other that you can overcome them and find a way to come out strong the next day. And that's how you're going to be able to get through it, essentially. The challenge we did. So.
So those are some really difficult challenges that y'all just laid out. Some stuff where I'm wondering, like, how did you all in the face of these challenges learn how to kind of like strike some balance between the things that you were facing at work, like in the middle of the strike, and just what was going on in your personal lives? Like what was that? What did that time look like for you all just in your personal lives, and how did you bring some semblance of balance to what you all were going through? And maybe let's start again back over here.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, my personal life took a big hit during the strike. I would say, you know, I told friends and stuff that I would be doing this. Family, I wouldn't be able to talk on the phone, you know, but it's difficult, you know. I think the thing that helped us get through it was each other. And you know, we'd go out for a drink after, we stay up and talk, and console each other during the difficult times. You know, I wasn't able to get a lot of work done with my dissertation at the time. I talked to my advisors about it. Luckily, they were cool with it. But I know a lot of other organizers and people that went on strike that did not have advisors that were supportive of what was going on. So we found ways to help each other out. You know, people were taking exams during this. We did study groups to help people get through that. You know, we had to, as strike captains, we had to like know each person in our strike group and know where they were at. If they had to do exams that week, you know, we had to ask other people in our strike group to kind of step up. If they didn't have exams that week, to come out on the picket line that week, because someone else had to go do that. So it was a lot of organizing work, but also just talking to each other, leaning on each other through it. Yeah, personally, I just got really exhausted and sick one day, came back and kept on going. And I think it was just it was the most, it was probably the most, it was the craziest, like, emotional time of my life. It was like all the emotions at once, essentially, right? Fear, doubt, happiness, strength, like all the things at once. And you kind of just ride that energy into you know, essentially is what I did. But, yeah, I would say lean on each other and work it into your organizing plan. If people are people are gonna have bad days during the strike. They're gonna get sick. They're not gonna be able to go. They're gonna have family members that are sick. You just have to plan for that beforehand and know each other and have other people be willing to step up essentially when someone goes down.
So my experience on the strike with balancing my personal life, I guess, it was a little bit complicated. I got a lot closer with other people that we were striking with, other graduate students. So I met a lot of people. The first strike was like it went pretty bad. I would say everyone was kind of doing bad that time. So it was kind of worrisome when we were making all those concessions on the contracts from our bargaining committee. But on the second strike, I would say I like look back on that time pretty fondly. I thought it was a pretty fun time. Again, I wasn't one of the main organizers, so I wasn't I guess I didn't have like the main brunt of work on my shoulders. But I still was involved in like getting students to not do research, not teach their classes, showing up to the picket lines, getting people to show up to the caucuses and to the bargaining. But the picket lines were like pretty fun, honestly. We weren't getting paid for like 3 months. That was not fun. But it was everyone wasn't getting paid for 3 months, so it wasn't like it's just you going through this bad time. It was everyone. So you're kind of able to like have like a lot of solidarity. The solidarity also from like other unions felt really good also. Just if some other union paid for our lunch that day at the picket line, that felt pretty good. Just seeing other people from other universities come and support us was also pretty inspiring, I guess. So I don't know. Yeah, I look pretty fondly on that time, especially because it all worked out and we got the contract that we wanted. Was just the cherry on top. But when you're like going through a time of like uncertainty, like a strike is, you don't know if it's gonna work out well. You don't know if you're gonna end up with you know, there's all these ways that it could go that you're just unsure about, and you're taking a really big risk to go on strike. But just seeing how like motivated and engaged everyone was, kind of like made everyone kind of like step up their game, I guess, or yeah, it was pretty good vibes at that time. And you can it showed in the I'm not gonna say it showed in the contracts, but it, yeah, it was a good time, I would say, yeah.
Bueno, a mí directamente me afectó el estar en esta huelga plantón. Personalmente tuve muchos problemas familiares porque no querían que siguiera en eso. Y en mi persona, pues mentalmente me sentía muy cansada, pero me sentía muy comprometida con todos los compañeros. Yo les decía, no los voy a dejar a pesar de mis problemas personales. Y no lo hice. Ha sido muy difícil porque la salud se afectó, todo, pero como yo veía que mis compañeros querían seguir, estaban, no se dejaban, yo no podía dejarlos porque era pues la líder que los había impulsado a lograr, a hacer ese plantón. Entonces, ha sido muy difícil porque también de cierta manera hubo una minoría de los compañeros que se pusieron en contra porque no querían seguir en esta lucha, porque decían que eso no iba para nada bueno. Entonces, surgieron muchos detalles con esa minoría que me afectó un poco más psicológicamente, pero no por eso dejé esta lucha. Ha sido muy difícil, ha sido muy duro, pero con el apoyo de todos los compañeros que queríamos lograr esto, continué hasta el final, aún a pesar de todos mis problemas, pero con la unión y el apoyo de todos mis compañeros fue como pude continuar con ellos y apoyándolos de la misma manera cuando ellos no podían hacer el plantón, estar yo presente en apoyo a ellos, porque como dicen, había personas que se enfermaban, su familia, sus hijos también tuvieron problemas personales, pero yo me sentía con un compromiso muy fuerte de apoyarlos a todos en todo lo que yo pudiera. Y eso fue lo que hice. Que gracias a eso, ahí estamos.
Gracias, gracias.
So in describing some of the challenges that you all faced and the balance that you all had to strike with your personal lives, in the end, it seems, from my understanding, like all of these strikes were successes. And so, like what I want to get to is can you? I know that Aaron, you kind of talked about it a little bit already, but like, can you summarize quickly what are the key achievements that you feel were a result of your strike? And then maybe in addition to that question, so what are the key achievements? But in addition, like tell us like the one thing, like just like one quick story of like what was your proudest moment? What is the thing that you're most proud of as a result of the work that you did during the strike? And I'm gonna pass it to you, Aaron.
So I would say one of the proudest moments from the strike was, I mean, there was a couple, but the first one that comes to my mind was a moment in the bargaining, kind of near the end when Columbia was starting to make a lot of their concessions, especially on the pay and the wages and all that stuff. They came to us with a proposal, and we're the student workers of Columbia, so it's not just PhD and master's students. Undergraduates are also included in our unit. So there's anyone who takes class, I mean, teaches classes or does research is included in our unit. So Columbia came to us with a proposition for wages where I don't remember the specific numbers, but they would increase the wages ridiculously for PhD students. So for me and honestly, a lot of the people who were like the lead organizers, but there would be like little to no increase in wages for like the other master's students and all that stuff. But I was like, I wasn't in support of it, obviously, but I was like kind of worried, like I didn't say anything out loud because everyone else kept a straight face, but I was like, was it gonna split us or something? Or is this really gonna draw a division? Like, are people gonna want to do this? But it wasn't even a discussion, really. It was like we took a vote on it on Zoom with in one of our open caucuses. We voted no on it with like 94, 96%. So I was just like, wow, it wasn't even a question. And I was like, so in my mind, like, wow, this could like undermine everything. But that was like one of my more proud moments that I remember. It's nothing I did like individually, but just like a small event that probably most people didn't even remember, that I remember like, wow, that was like a pretty significant show of like the solidarity that we had for like the highest earning to like the lowest earning member of our unit. So, I don't remember all of them specifically, if I'm being honest, but we won increases in our pay. I think it was 5% the first year, and then 3% each successive year. We didn't get any cost of living adjustment. So with the inflation that happened the past couple of years, that kind of ate into those winnings. We won another path for through the union to organize grievances against like harassment or bullying from professors, which is like really rampant. There's like a pretty significant like culture in a lot of labs of overworking your students. So there's now I feel like there's a lot less of that on campus now. There's like a lot more students like feeling like they can like speak up for themselves, or they don't have to like just take on the brunt of the work or whatever their PI gives them. And that's still, I would say that's still an issue on campus for sure. But we were able to address that a little bit in our contracts. We won back, is it vision or dental? Vision in our contracts. And we set up a healthcare fund for out-of-pocket expenses that our healthcare wasn't out-of-pocket expenses from our healthcare that we organize twice a year. So those were I would say the main ones, increases in wages, non-discrimination and harassment, and the healthcare, the vision and the healthcare fund that we set up. Oh, another big one. Like I said, just getting recognition for our whole unit. Throughout the whole bargaining process, Columbia was trying to like systematically cut out certain student workers by their designation, or if they're on appointment or off appointment or something like that. That's something that we didn't, it was like in the contract, but Columbia wasn't recognizing it for a while, but we just won that last year, like 2023, of like an official decision from the NLRB to say that like, okay, everyone is in the unit. So that's like something that didn't get resolved until this year, until 2023.
Hottest moment, definitely that moment that Abdulaziz and Yusuf went up, because Abdulaziz, we built a relationship for a long time and organizing together. I knew that was really difficult for him, and but for when he went up and said "fuck you" to Temple after he got his health insurance cut, but also personally, so I was a history department steward for the majority of my organizing. And week one, when they started scabbing, our department was like kind of sending out emails about scabbing. It wasn't exactly that, but it seemed like they were kind of adhering to the university a little bit, talking to students in our class and saying, hey, I can help you out with some of the work, kind of stuff like that, a little bit of that. So I got everybody, so everyone in our department went on strike. Every single person in our department went on strike. And I was like, okay, we got to go and confront the professors about this. These are your advisors. We're gonna do it together. So we're gonna all leave the picket line for like 45 minutes. We're gonna schedule an emergency meeting with the department, and we're all gonna walk in with our strike shirts on together, and we're gonna tell them to stop scabbing. And I don't think they realized how many people were actually on strike, because it was kind of weird how they couldn't tell exactly who was on strike and who wasn't based on what we were doing for work. So I don't think our department chair really understood exactly how deep it was. So when we all walked in, that was the looks on their faces was kind of like, some people that were supporting the strike were like, hell yeah. And then some people that were like kind of scabbing were like, oh shit. This is like, if they lose this strike, we lose our department kind of thing. So they realized that they should stop doing what they're doing. And yeah, that was a tough moment. But we won 40% raises over 4 years. We won end of wage tiers. So we had differences in pay based on where you worked. So if you worked in the business school and hard sciences, you got paid more than those in the humanities, that kind of stuff. So they ended the wage tiers. We tripled our parental leave. We got an extra week of bereavement leave for international students, which is a really big deal because a lot of international students that had people that died in their family, they only had 3 or 4 days bereavement leave, and you can't go back to India in 3 or 4 days and actually grieve. So that was a huge deal for us to get that extra week. We got a little bit of a change in the grievance procedure that helped a little bit. We got for the first time, we got dependent health. So we have 100% coverage on our premiums for health insurance. We had that already. That was like a big thing. We didn't concede on that, which is a big win. They wanted to cut that. And then we got an extra 25% on dependent care. We wanted to get more on that, but now they have to bargain that every time we go to the table. Now it's part of bargaining now. So that was a huge, and that was like really a proud moment too, because when we got to the end, the employers, they're going to go to the last minute and they're going to try to fake you into thinking that you'll never get it. And then the next day you get it, right? And that was one of the things where they're like, we're not going to give you the raises and the dependent health insurance. And, you know, we had maybe 20% of people that used dependent health insurance in our bargaining unit, but everyone was like, hell no, we're not going to take this contract until you give us dependent health insurance, because you, international students could then bring their families to, it was a real thing. People can now bring their families. So now I know people who had, you know, wives, husbands, and daughters and sons that they were formerly separated from for 2 or 3 years, and now they could come over, they could be on the health insurance. So that was a really, really great thing.
Bueno, en nuestro caso, bueno, en mi caso, lo satisfactorio del proceso que íbamos llevando fue cuando empezamos las negociaciones, que estábamos luchando por 28 puestos que nos habían propuesto la ciudad. Esto fue algo importante para mí para seguir en la lucha, pero lamentablemente el resultado no fue el que esperábamos, porque terminaron dándonos 14 puestos, 14 espacios dentro de la plaza, y nos la pusieron muy difícil, en específico a los compañeros que venden comida. Son muchos requisitos. O sea que la lucha sigue, no hemos parado, porque no ha sido lo que nosotros creíamos y queríamos lograr. Pero sabemos que si seguimos luchando, vamos a lograrlo, porque ha sido muy difícil, ha sido un proceso muy largo. Aparte, no tuvimos el apoyo de nuestro concejal, señor Francisco Moya, era el que no nos quería dentro de Corona Plaza, pero aún con eso logramos esos 14 puestos y sabíamos que si no lo aceptábamos ya no íbamos a obtener nada. Entonces teníamos que aceptar esos 14 espacios para continuar en la lucha, para obtener más. El horario también nos lo cambiaron, pedíamos un horario, teníamos un horario de 7 de la mañana a 1 de la mañana, que era la venta para los vendedores de comida, y nos lo cambiaron a un horario de 9 de la mañana a 8 de la noche, de miércoles a domingo. Eso era lo que nosotros no esperábamos eso y no habíamos quedado en eso. Pero como les repito, si no aceptábamos, no íbamos a poder seguir luchando. Así que ahorita seguimos luchando, pero es muy difícil por nuestros compañeros de comida. Ellos se las pusieron muy difícil. Son muchos más requisitos. Quien a los vendedores de carritos, los push car que le llaman, no los inspeccionan tanto como a nosotros. Entonces sí, es muy difícil, pero teníamos que aceptarlo, lo aceptamos y seguimos en la lucha porque queremos obtener más espacios y un horario más conveniente para todos nosotros. Así que ahí vamos, poco a poco. Muchas gracias.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we have time to open it up for you all to ask questions as well. So if you all want to get some questions ready, just think of some questions. But one last question from me is, so you have a group of folks here that are listening to your stories, and from the little straw poll that we took earlier, like they've not gone on strike. If there was one thing that you had to share with them, one takeaway for them tonight, what would that be?
Yo creo que lo más importante en una lucha, en una huelga o lo que sea, es la unión y la comunicación entre los compañeros que estén en esto. Porque si no hay comunicación, no hay apoyo, no van a lograr nada. Al contrario, se divide la gente y se hacen grupos minoritarios en los que luego quieren boicotear el proceso o la lucha. Entonces, lo más importante para mí es la unión, la comunicación y el apoyo de algunas otras personas de fuera de lo que es la lucha de, por ejemplo, de nosotros de ABA, tuvimos muchos apoyos del presidente del condado de Queens, de la asambleísta Catalina Cruz. Entonces, eso nos motivaba a seguir luchando, pero en comunicación con los compañeros y apoyo para todo lo que podíamos. Creo que es eso para mí lo más importante.
Yeah, so there's a lot of things that you could say, but to think of just one thing, I would say get creative in the ways that you disrupt the company, I guess. Uh, so one of the main things that we did that I just remembered was we were ticketing the loading dock specifically because a lot of the companies like FedEx are unionized also. So we were disrupting a lot of the deliveries that were being made to Colombia. The nitrogen tanks for our labs were not getting delivered, so there was a shortage on a lot of lab supplies. So now professors were saying to the administration, can you get this strike situated? So that takes a lot of communication. Like you said, like communication. Our caucuses that happen right after our bargaining meetings with the university to like kind of debrief what was in the contract and stuff like that was really important. Being democratic in the way we make decisions was really important. But if I had to say one thing, it will probably be to like just get creative in the ways that you are putting pressure on the university, not the university, but whatever company that you are would be striking against. It's not just forming a picket line and standing up and not working. Of course, that's a really big part of it, but it can be so many more things that are disruptive that will like help you to get the contract or the living conditions that you and all your other coworkers desire.
Yeah, I think to add to that, definitely communication is big in terms of democratic decision making and really believing that you and your coworkers have power and you have the organizing capability to overcome what the employer is sending you and know that you have that. Like be confident that you can do that from the very beginning, because there are going to be times where it's going to be difficult and you're going to question yourself. You're going to question what you're doing. You're going to question, why you're out there. And that's the time when you get together and talk to each other and rely on each other to know that someone's going to have an idea, someone's going to have a strategy, somebody's going to know somebody that's going to be able to help get around whatever the employer is putting at you. So you just know that you have high expectations and you can rely on your organizing capacity, and you have structures to do that and have confidence in that, because there will be times where it will be difficult to do that. And whenever we had that, we had a meeting, large meetings, open discussion, figuring out how we get around the issues that are facing us. So I would say just, believe that you can do that.
Thank you. How are we doing this? Well, we're gonna do this Q&A now, but in the meantime, I want for you all to give a round of applause to Rosaria. And thank you all so much. So maybe I'll just walk around and get questions from people. Does anybody have a question? We have a question here. Okay, it goes about this far.
Can people hear me?
Yeah.
Howdy, Sam Deshi. I'm an organizer with Northern New Jersey Industrial Workers of the World. I have a question. For those who were organizing with healthcare, did you bargain specifically related to trans-related healthcare? Because like as someone who is trans, that's very important to me. And I know a lot of people, since like we are a very small minority, most people would be like, oh, they're just one or two people or whatever. And it's really important to have solidarity. So I'm wondering if like y'all have had any experiences with that in specific.
Thank you so much. Anybody with any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so that's really important. A lot of people in our leadership structure are trans people. And I believe there were, I don't know the specifics, but I believe there were a lot of there was like full coverage for like gender affirming care in our contracts. So that's one thing that I know was one for trans people in our contract. And that's for like everyone in our unit, whether they teach or do research or anything like that. So that was one thing that we won. And yeah.
Any other? We have another question over here. So could you all come up to the mic?
Yeah, sure. Really, it's an open question for the audience and also for panelists. I think that one of the differences that I was able to work closely with the street vendors and I work with Street Vendor Project, like how politicized and how their struggle was versus how sometimes the labor movement and labor organizing focuses more on economic demands at the workplace. And with street vendors, their existence is highly political because most of them immigrant with mixed status in households. And so I'm wondering how the labor movement sees political questions and how labor organizers see political questions in the workplace. For example, right now, there's been a couple of labor unions that have, and I commend them for some resolutions and have a ceasefire for their unions and their locals to have a ceasefire on the current conflict, on the war on Gaza. And so, wondering, I mean, I'm probably preaching to the choir, but I'm wondering how labor organizers, labor unions can better integrate these political demands, or if there's any intention to do that, right? And not just limited to just economic demands. Thank you.
So yeah, I feel like our union is very vocal on political topics. I don't know if it's related to anything that we won in our strike, but I know that after the stuff that happened on October 7th, a lot of people or our union did release a statement in support of a ceasefire. So we've spoken out on topics like that. Yeah.
So a big part of our campaign was because Temple is a public institution and public education and getting a lot of money from the government. A big part of our campaign, a lot of us are teachers, was Temple, why are you spending money on investments, on buildings, on, why are you spending no money on the teachers that this whole institution is here to perform, right? Because we're here to publicly educate. And I think that in and of itself was a big part of why that we fed in our economic demands with a broader political demand that says, what's going on with the budget? and this expanded, I think, was a big reason why a lot of undergrads ended up taking the walkout, was because when they were speaking to us as teachers, when we went on strike, talking to them why we were going on strike, we were saying, if I can't get paid what I need to live, I got to go into debt and I got to work another job, which means I can't focus on teaching, right? And that means that public education is failing, and it's failing because of people that are making decisions that think that it's more important to, expand their endowment than it is to invest in their education. And I think a big part of the very beginning, our campaign was to express that in a political way. And that's how we actually used a lot of our leverage in Harrisburg when we went to go lobby and really put a crisis with the Democrats in Harrisburg. Because there was appropriations every year coming up, and we were going to say, do you really want this strike going on? And, really want to bring up, this issue where you keep paying Temple all this money and not telling them to lower their tuition rates, right? Because we'll talk about that, right? We've been talking about that, and the students are talking about that, and that got the Democrats to kind of push hard on Temple to pass this contract and then actually talk about the issues that Temple was doing, essentially. So that was a kind of a big way that we combined the economic demands with a broader kind of political demand.
Next question.
Oh. So I was wondering, and this is for everybody, and I think I guess it'll be different for everybody, but what was the public reaction and how much did it affect you guys in your strike? And did you change your strategy based on what you saw the public, if at all, reaction, like positive or negative? Thank you.
Bueno, en nuestro caso, la reacción pública sí fue muy dividida, pero principalmente de la comunidad de nuestro alrededor. Había una persona que se hace llamar un líder de la comunidad, que protege a su comunidad, pero simplemente lo que provocaba era que la comunidad nos atacara, porque también nos atacaban por nuestro estatus migratorio, pero gracias a que decía que no merecíamos pelear por algo que no nos correspondía. Entonces, había división, pero teníamos mucho apoyo de otra comunidad que venían como turistas a conocer, a ver la plaza, a comer las comidas, diversidad de comida. Entonces, ese apoyo de esa gente de más de fuera lo que nos motivaba más a seguir. Pero recibimos insultos a la hora de pedir nuestras firmas para apoyo. Era de verdad, hacían llorar a muchas compañeras. Como les repito, éramos más mujeres y de verdad fue muy difícil, pero no por eso paramos. Pero sí fue algo muy difícil. Hay personas que estaban de acuerdo como personas que no. Pero por esas que siempre nos apoyaron eran las que estábamos, por las que seguíamos y seguíamos. Pero sí recibimos, incluso una compañera hasta le aventaron comida en la cara para que nos fuéramos de ahí. Pero era por esa persona que se dedicaba a hablar mal de nosotros. Pero no nos hemos dejado porque nos sigue molestando, pero ahí seguimos. Así que.
So I felt like the community response to our strike was generally positive. The students were pretty good in getting the word out to the media. There was like a lot of like press coverage on the strike. And there was a lot of, like I said, other student worker unions or graduate student unions from across the country that were like watching our strike because it had implications on what they would demand in their contract also. So I felt like there was a lot of support, definitely more support than people opposing the demand that we were making. There was, of course, like a small contingent of students who were completely against the strike, but they they didn't share, a big, it was a pretty small, percentage, insignificant percentage. But I felt that the news coverage, the social media presence, and like, anything I would hear from other people about the strike, was generally positive, and supportive of, what we were, asking for from the university. So yeah.
Yeah, I think students, especially, and parents in some cases, were definitely behind it, especially after, them cutting the health insurance and adding the tuition remission back on. That made public news. I would say that it's, we have like a media strategy, but you don't want to rely on, especially mainstream press, to kind of give you the right story, even if, it was rare that they reached out to us. They almost always reached out to the employer first. They put out like false shit without even realizing it. Right now, the press, I think the press is kind of a bit ignorant on, what's going on with labor. They just don't really understand kind of what, the details are. They always think of, they always think in terms of the employer side first. So I would say when you go on strike, you should have contact with the media, but you shouldn't rely on the media for your, strength. You should do that with your coworkers, and just making sure when the press do get there that everyone understands exactly, everyone's ready to talk to the press and say, this is why I'm here. I know why I'm here. I'm with my coworkers, and that does pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I think there were other supporters, other unions that came out and saw what was going on. But I would say be cautious with the press, especially mainstream press.
Thanks everybody for telling their incredible stories. I had a question about open bargaining. I know everyone does it kind of differently, and the kind of quorum and how you organize, who can speak. I just kind of wanted to hear about what the ground rules were for your open bargaining sessions.
So the ground rules were, essentially when the employer's there, everyone is very disciplined. So everyone's on the same page. It doesn't mean that no one has a say when the employer's there, but everyone understands beforehand that the people that speak when the employer is there are the people that are at the table who represent you, who are part of your caucusing, the people that you elected to be there, right? We send up notes, so we could always like text the people at the table if you heard something that was wrong, that they could then ask the employer at the table. And then you could always kind of request a caucus, an emergency caucus, if there was something really bad going on and you thought that the people on your side of the table were kind of taking the wrong direction because they had misinformation or something like that. But caucusing was big too. So between each session, in each session, we had caucusing that discussed what the employer was saying. We talked about strategy, how to come back and talk to the employer about it. But actually it was the discipline. So we stood up and walked out one time, we organized that. So it's not that, people don't have agency, but it's everyone organized. And that's what the employer fears. The employer fears when they realize that everyone is like disciplined and understands exactly what to do, that's when they freak out. If they hear people stand up and say like, that's wrong and stuff like that in open bargaining, they're going to think you're unorganized. They're going to think, this kind of thing. So that's kind of what our approach was.
I feel like our process was pretty similar. That was everything was on Zoom, so there was no like meeting space or anything like that. But as of recent, Columbia has like tried to make it a priority to have like closed discussions with the union on like contract issues. But I guess they couldn't do that back then because everything was on Zoom. There was like there's still no basis for that, but back then when everything was on Zoom, everyone could see what was going on. It was pretty, I'm not gonna say like scripted, but we would have a meeting with the university. They would make their proposals or we would make our proposals. There were a certain amount of students representing our union who would speak for that session. They probably had like some text that was prepared about whatever topic we were discussing that day on the contract. Columbia would respond. They would send back files, and then we would look at it in our caucus and then go on from there. So I guess it was like pretty similar to Temple's process of debating what we wanted to put in the contracts.
How are we looking? Maybe we got time for one more? One more?
There's a
Oh, there's two more?
question, there's a question in the chat too.
Okay.
Everyone.
Hi, everyone. My name's Max. I'm always really curious about how collective action changes people. So I'm wondering if you could talk about how people's consciousness changed during and after the strike. Did the next day when people walk back to work, did they just kind of shrug and go, huh, that was weird? Or did they think like, oh, wow, I'm like pretty powerful when I'm with my coworkers to like win better conditions on the job? Or did it expand beyond that to like changing their worldview about politics, society, et cetera?
Let's go ahead and take these last three together and then y'all can answer, kind of combo answer. And I'll hand it over to Joe for the chat question.
Hello, everyone, from behind the computer. This is from Jez in the chat. How did you communicate with fellow workers? What was the process, or what processes did you use to make decisions? And I'm wondering if it was a email list, text groups, etc.
Thank you, Jez, in the chat. And we have one more question.
Hey, I was wondering for those who were fearful, like your coworkers who were fearful or maybe hesitant about going on strike, how did you win that over?
Okay, yeah, I will just pass it down and you can answer one or all of the questions.
Bueno, respondiendo a la pregunta que acaban de hacer, sí hubo pues compañeros que tenían miedo, que no querían seguir. De hecho, hubo muchos que sí se fueron porque creían que no íbamos a lograr nada. Y el miedo más que nada era por el acoso policial que teníamos. No nos querían dentro de esa lucha, pero pues no por esa minoría íbamos a dejarlo. Pero sí, todos tuvimos miedo en un momento, pero unos más que otros. Ese miedo va a existir. Por más que nada en nuestro caso, por la situación migratoria, es más el miedo que nos da. Pero logramos seguir.
Yeah, so I think like I mentioned the last time, there was like a small contingent of people who were against our strike, but there was probably a lot bigger group of people who were just didn't care about what was going on. So especially in like the STEM programs, there was like a good amount of labs. We have a medical campus and a main campus. So especially at our medical campus, there was like a good amount of disengagement in the strike, people completely out of the loop. So we would like try our best through emails, through doing walkarounds, and like having one-on-one conversations with people. Generally, I feel like that was the best you can do in a lot of cases. If someone is not completely interested and you're telling them about all the ways that it does affect their life, then you have to focus on all of the people who are like actually giving an effort or more engaged in what's going on. So yeah, and to answer I guess the chat question about like the ways we would communicate, I think we used all of those methods. We sent out like mass emails after our caucuses about like just debriefing what we decided on, what we talked about. For like action groups or like smaller groups, I guess we would have WhatsApp group chats about like if you're doing the delivery stoppages or the people who are doing the what's it called? The people who are like leading the strikes, strike leaders, strike captains, yeah. So yeah, we would use emails, we would use messaging apps, we would have speeches at like the end of each of our each strike day, I guess. Just like with updates about what's going on and different ways you can get involved in organizing. In addition to like doing those walkarounds and like trying to like foster relationships with people. So we utilized we tried to utilize as many like mediums of communication as possible. There was one more question. I forgot what it was. Oh, yeah. So I really did feel like it transformed a lot of people's mindset on unions and like what the purpose of a student union is. I felt like it did change the politics of a lot of people in my program and a lot of people I know who like were disengaged previously. I know for me, it definitely changed how I view the world and like my sense of how I view Colombia also, just like through the ways that they engage with us disgustingly. So yeah, it changed the view for a lot of people. But there was obviously after the strike ended, we got our contract. There was like not obviously, but there was like a pretty big drop off in engagement right after, because it's kind of like the end, but it's really not the end. It's just the beginning of trying to make sure that the contract is enforced. Trying to look at now that we have a union, how can we protect ourselves or protect our workers outside of what the contract says, and how we can just serve as like a mouthpiece for the workers. So now that we're like getting close to like the new contract or our contract expiring next year, there is like a little bit of like more of like a swelling of like engagement now as people are like having more of these conversations and stuff like that. I feel like it's kind of like in election years, like there's a lot of engagement leading up and then there's like a pretty big drop off afterwards. So
Yeah, I'll start with the communication question. The communication, very similar to what Aaron was saying. We had during the strike, we would have debriefs at the end of each day. We'd have beginning of the day. So the structure was we had strike captains who were part of the organizing committee from the beginning. We each had about 30 people in our strike groups. And a big part of our job was to communicate from the bargaining table to us, to strategy, why we're doing what we're doing each day, what's the plan for each day to each group, and then have meetings with those in our groups to then bring that back up to those at the bargaining table or in the organizing committee and the strike committee. So that was a lot of, we had WhatsApp chats, we had Discord chats, like kind of ad hoc meetings when it was, during contract, like when it was getting really like back and forth, like in one day you had a contract go across the table like twice kind of thing. We'd have emergency caucuses. It was difficult though, because some people, it was difficult to kind of do the Zoom really quickly or try to like do it. A lot of times it was difficult to deal with people that came out to picket were the ones that were immediately there to kind of like do caucusing. So they had more decision-making power in some cases because of just the day-to-day when it got really close to the end. So that was difficult to kind of deal with and do communication in real time. That was a similar kind of communication. The fear question, yeah, I mean, part of getting over the fear, I think, is organizing before the strike. So you do petitions, you have people sign petitions, their face on things. We did practice picketing, we yelled at administrators, we people stood up for themselves in their departments. They said, I'm not gonna, as we got closer to the strike, if you were in a lab and you were working, 10, 20 hours a week over what you should be, you say, I'm not gonna do that, I'm not gonna do that. And you just kind of build that risk and fear away. But, I think part of it, you're gonna have fear. It's just gonna be there. But realizing that you're gonna be afraid during it is just part of it. And you gotta kind of work together to get through that. And then the consciousness kind of question, like changing the way we think about our work. I think a lot of people, myself included, were empowered. They thought more of themselves at work. They felt empowered to do things more. And I think the lasting bit of it is the camaraderie that we made with people from different departments, people we would have never seen. If the strike never happened, if we didn't have a union, we would have never met people in other departments. We would never learned about their lives, struggled together in something, and now we have lasting friendships from that. We still have meetings together. We go out. When we get together, we don't just talk research. We also talk shop. We talk about what's going on in our department. So there's this new kind of a big thing that we won was a stronger union, a more militant union, and people talking about their work. And that's really, really good. So I'm trying to think what the last bit of that was, but yeah, and then the contract enforcement. Yeah, so you're going to have a little drop off after because people are tired and they don't want to struggle all the time. But people are if they're more willing to step up and tell their employers, hey, or their PIs, hey, I don't want to work that. I'm not going to work on the weekends. They're going to reach out to their union leadership more and their grievance officers more. They're going to defend the contract that they want. Essentially, people are more willing to defend the contract.
Okay, so I just want folks to give another round of applause to all of our panelists, Rosario, Aaron, and Josh. And then one more time, just a special thanks to all of our co-sponsors, brand workers, of course, El Hormiguero, the IWW NYC, Anak Bayan in Manhattan, MAC, the DSA Labor Branch, the Urban Justice Center, the Street Vendors Project, the Laundry Workers Center, EWALC, the Emergency Workplace Organizing Committee, the North New Jersey DSA, and the Astoria Workers Project, and also our venue host, the LIC Beer Project. Make sure that you tip your bartenders, make sure that we tip them well. And to help keep events like this free and to support New York City workers organizing their workplaces, make sure that you donate to the Give Butter, givebutter.com/strike panel. There's a QR code in the back of the pamphlet. Thank you all for coming out again. Feel free to hang out and yeah, we'll see you next time.